Welcome back to another episode of the Untitled Football Podcast. Today we're going to talk about week number 4, some betting stuff, fantasy preview, all that stuff, analysis. Let's just get right into it with a very game that should have never been in prime time to begin with, Jets versus Broncos. And yeah, the showdown between Sam Darnold and Brett Rippon Thursday night. Man, I really don't know why this game was on primetime to begin with. Because the Jets were bad on paper going into the year, so it didn't make sense to put them in a primetime game, but for some reason they are. Against the Broncos. No Courtland Sutton, no Drew Lock. They're not starting Driscoll, they're starting Rippon. And the Jets are bad as well. Probably the worst team in the NFL. Now, the spread for this game is 1 point. It is a toss-up. I don't know who will win this game. The Broncos are favorited. And personally, I think Darnold's better than Rippon. Rippon's not good. Though Darnold hasn't been that good either. I think he is a little bit better than he's given credit for, though still not really that good. Rippon, he wasn't even that good coming out of college. So I don't even know who I'll pick in this game. Honestly, I'm leaning towards the Jets. But then again, Sam Darnold is throwing to Braxton Berrios, which isn't really a wide receiver quarterback duo you want to put faith in, or you want to put money on. Don't bet this game. Don't bet this game. It's not. No, it's not worth it. This game sucks. Jamison Crowder could come back though, which he'd probably be the best receiver in that game. Possibly. Jerry Jeudy, he's been fine. There's splash plays of him running great routes, but overall he hasn't been a great receiver so far. So, dang. He hasn't been a phenomenal receiver so far. Struggled with drops. He's a very shaky, inconsistent receiver right now, but I do like what I'm seeing from Jeudy. He's probably the only reason to watch this game. There's no other. This game, there'll probably be someone that, Darnold will probably prove a lot of people wrong this game, play a pretty good game, or Rippon's gonna, I don't know, actually, I actually don't know. I'm leaning towards New York because the Broncos are starting Brett Rippon, but overall, I still think the Broncos are trotting out a better roster, even though A.J. Boye's injured, Von Miller's injured, Courtland Sutton's injured, Drew Lock is injured. I don't know, though. I'm going to go with the New York Jets. Next game, we have the Saints versus the Lions. Saints coming off of a loss against the Packers on Sunday Night Football at home. Not like that really mattered. They had limited fans. Lions coming off of a win against the Arizona Cardinals, who I thought were a bit overrated and overvalued. As they came into that, the Cardinals came into that game 6-point favorites at some places. This game though, Lions are coming in as 4-point favorites against the New Orleans Saints. You can get them as low as 3.5. I guess this will give away the prediction a bit early, but I don't think they. I don't know. The Saints haven't been good though. The Saints, looking at how their offense has produced, they are damn, I can't find them. Their offense hasn't been that good. So I don't know, because the Lions just got Kenny Galladay back, and they also got back Okudah, who has been pretty bad despite making one interception, getting his ankles broken, shadowing Devontae Adams, getting cooked. He hasn't had an easy go of it, and if Michael Thomas doesn't play this week, then he's going to have a much easier game this week. So, yeah, but the Saints offense, 21st in EPA per play, Lions 23rd in EPA per play. The Lions have been not so good this year. I'm gonna go with the Saints this game. I think they'll cover the 3.5/4 because I don't think that the Lions. Well, I do think they're like I had them. Like I thought they'd be pretty good preseason, but Matthew Stafford hasn't played really at a level to where they can be that good again. To where like they can be a good team really. I mean, he's been decent, but I don't know if they're. I mean, if Michael Thomas doesn't play, then I think that there's a chance here that they cover that line because, I mean, the Lions have been relatively competitive in all their games. Like they went up on the Panthers 14-3. They went up on the Bears. The Bears aren't a good team though, so yeah, they beat the Cardinals. But I also don't think the Cardinals. I also didn't think the Cardinals were that good of a team either. So, yeah, and like the Cardinals and Saints offense are really similar in terms of they don't really go down the field that often. Both of their quarterbacks really only throw short passes. Really only throw passes that are like because like the Cardinals run a ton of screens. Drew Brees is just pumping the ball to Alvin Kamara at an insanely high rate right now. Alvin Kamara is on pace for 160 targets and 1,500 receiving yards. Yeah, but Drew Brees, last game was a bit better. Like I think he made a throw or a couple of throws to show that his arm may not be completely off of a cliff, may not be completely off the cliff yet. Though it probably is because those throws outside of the numbers just aren't. Like Drew Brees really struggles to get the ball outside of the numbers. That's like 2-yard hitch, like 3-yard like hitch routes. He can barely get the ball to them. Like that play that Jari Alexander broke up against the Packers was a hitch route that took 7 hours to get to him on like a crosshash hitch route. He doesn't really have the arm talent, and he doesn't target there often. Like most of his targets, like he has 37 targets that are in between the numbers in the 0 to 9 range of the field, and in between the numbers behind the line of scrimmage, he has 15 targets, which is by far the most of any other range he targets on the field. In between the numbers, behind the line of scrimmage, short. He does have a couple passes in the 10-yard range and a couple deep shots, but other than that, the offense has really been concentrated in one spot in terms of where they pass the ball. Because Drew Brees struggles to throw outside of the numbers now. His arm just can't allow that anymore. But the Lions, I don't know, because like it seems like Emmanuel Sanders hasn't been getting involved nearly as much as people would have expected him to coming into this season. But he's still better. Like, he can still give Jeff Okudah some issues. Jeff Okudah hasn't really been that good this year. So, I'm going to go with the Saints to cover and win the game. Win outright. Okay, yeah. Now let's go to the next game. Chargers versus the Buccaneers. The Bucs are coming into this game at home as 7-point favorites. You can get them as high as 7.5. There's 7.5 on FanDuel. You can get them as high as 7.5. Okay. They're coming off a game in the Broncos in which Tom Brady had his best statistical game of the year, but probably his worst game playing. Like, his accuracy in that game wasn't great. Missed a couple throws. But he also still made a pretty good throw to Mike Evans. Pretty good placement on the feed. Chris Godwin is out again with an injury. And reportedly is out till week 6. So, it's difficult. Like the acclimation process for Tom Brady was already going to be difficult coming to a new system for the first time in 20 years, or a new coach, because the Patriots system has evolved itself over the years. But being in a completely new coach with new language and stuff, like shortened off season, receivers in and out of the lineup, it is going to be difficult for this team to really catch stride how like they should be catching stride because people are in and out of the lineup. Evans played injured, Godwin out. Then it's going to be difficult for him to fully acclimate himself. So by mid-season, maybe a bit later, you'll probably see the finished final form of the Bucs. And personally, I think they're Super Bowl contenders. But the NFC is pretty wide open right now. Like, wide open right now. So, I think all the top teams there have their flaws. So it really is an open race for the 1 seed or the Super Bowl. The team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. It really is a wide open race. Chargers, on the other hand, came off a loss to the Panthers. Justin Herbert starting. I mean, the Panthers aren't... I thought they were a bit underrated coming into the season. I mean, the Chargers, I didn't think the Chargers were good coming into the year. I thought they were a pretty bad team, and they still are a pretty bad team. They have one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So, yeah, the Chargers they're actually 17th in yards per play, which is actually much higher than I thought they were going to be. But, they're 26th in EPA per play. EPA per, drop back. They're not a good offense. And the Bucs, though they're still kind of rough and a choppy offense, they're still a better offense than the Chargers, though they don't have it all figured out right now. They're still an overall better offense than the Chargers right now. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. But, the Chargers do have a matchup they could probably exploit. Moving Keenan Allen into the slot outside. I don't think they have anyone to cover them, though I like Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. The short area quickness of Keenan Allen might give them some issues. They don't have that type of change of direction, so Keenan Allen could be something that and Keenan Allen's getting a ton of targets. Keenan Allen is, 5th in targets, I think. Keenan Allen's getting a ton of targets. He's getting a ton of targets this season. He is second in targets, and he's third in catches, third in receptions. So from a fantasy standpoint, Keenan Allen was somebody that was a bit undervalued in drafts, who I was pretty high on, kind of because he's kind of the only guy. But Mike Williams has emerged, made some really good plays. I don't know if he's emerged, but he has a highlighted play every game. So yeah, Justin Herbert though, he hasn't been that good. But I think because of some of the throws he's made, some of the stuff he's showed, it's going to be difficult for them to put Tyrod back in. Or Tyrod. I'm never calling him that. It's going to be difficult to put Tyrod back in with what some of the throws Herbert showed, even though his consistency from throw to throw, his accuracy has still been pretty bad. He's made some pretty bad decisions, but I'd roll with him. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. Do they cover 7? I think so. The Chargers struggle to score, and the Bucs defense is actually pretty good. So, yeah, let's get on to the next game, though. 2 young stud quarterbacks. Well, maybe 1 young stud quarterback. But Gardner Minshew and his Jaguars versus Joe Burrow and his Bengals. Cincinnati comes into this game as the favorite by 3 points, I think. Okay, yeah, they come into the game as 3-point favorites, so I don't know if that's because of the home field advantage, which makes the home field advantage added, even though there is no home field advantage, which makes this game a pick'em. I'm not quite sure if that's what's happening here, because I don't know if the Bengals are 3 points better than the Jaguars. Actually, I think they do. I think I think they have the better quarterback and better offense coming in. And I don't think the Jaguars have the pass rush weapons to have the pass rush players to kind of exploit the biggest weakness of the Bengals, which is the fact they have a dog shit offensive line. I don't think they have the guys to exploit. Oh, I mean, Josh Allen, but I mean, he plays a lot of the left, so he is going to be matched up with. No, Jonah Williams is a left tackle too, so on the other side. So never mind. The Bengals have one viable linebacker, and lineman. I mean, they have like one good lineman on their team. The other four are awful. If they could just get like four at least average guys, I think their offense will be exponentially better, because the fact that Burrow is playing behind this offensive line could mess him up in the future in terms of his pocket presence, because you might see him start to panic a little bit more. Right, like right now he's all calm, cool, and collected, but the longer he stays behind this offensive line, the further damage could be done to him as a quarterback, as like fundamentally, from like a pocket presence standpoint. He's not gonna want to try to win from the pocket. He's gonna try to bail on clean pockets. That's how you become Baker Mayfield, basically. Even though Baker did it at Oklahoma a pretty good amount, and Oklahoma had a really good offensive line. That's just something that Baker struggled with. Joe Burrow doesn't. Joe Burrow, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow and his Bengals to beat the Jaguars. But I could also see a way in which the Jags win. I think this game might be relatively high scoring. Let me see what the total is. The total for this game is 49. I think they might go over. I don't know, because both these teams have pretty bad defenses and pretty good offenses. Like, there could be a pretty good amount of points this game. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bengals this game. And let's go on to the next game. Vikings versus Texans. This game could get canceled, or postponed at least, because not the NFL, but the Vikings had some COVID-19 cases due to the Texans game, and the Texans game already got postponed. The Titans game already got postponed. That game against the Steelers already got postponed like Monday or Tuesday or something like that. But yeah, this game is still going on. As we know right now, Vikings. From the information we have right now, this game is still going to happen. Vikings versus the Texans. Texans coming into this game as 3.5-point favorites. You can get them as high as 4.5. I find that line a little weird, based on the fact that that basically implies that the Titans are 1.5 points worse than the Texans on a neutral field. But like then again, that is like a pick'em line. So maybe there's some validity to that. The Texans are a 1.5-point favorite against the Titans on a neutral field. Now, I do think they're 4.5 points better than the Vikings, possibly, because I don't think the Vikings are that good. So, with that information being known, I'm going to go with the Texan. The Vikings had a respectable game last week, but they're going to come off of a short week of practice, or no practice potentially, if this game even happens on Sunday, because of they close all in-person activity. So the game could actually get postponed. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see though. Texans on the other hand, coming off probably their best offensive performance. Well, point total wise it is, but their offense in the first half was really good, and showing that they can put together the performances I thought they were capable of. And with that being said, I'm going to go with the Texans. Much better quarterback, Deshaun Watson, than Kirk Cousins. So, yeah. The Vikings still aren't good. They have a bad coverage unit. They're going to be coming off of a short week, or no week of practice, if the game even happens on Sunday. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Texans to beat the Minnesota Vikings. Seahawks versus the Miami Dolphins. You have red hot Russell Wilson coming into Miami. Miami, who was dealing with some injuries to their secondary. Doesn't really matter. The Seahawks would probably flame them anyway. I mean, from a schematic standpoint, they could do some things to kind of slow down their passing game, but then again, I don't think they'll work just because they don't have the talent. Unless Byron Jones plays, but Xavier Howard's dealing with injuries. Byron Jones is dealing with injuries. Noah Monogany isn't good. So this probably will be a bloodbath. The line is 6.5 though. Up as high as 7. I mean, last year's Seahawks probably play a close game with this team because the Seahawks only play close games last year. I mean, this year, some of the scores that finished close, like the Falcons game, but that game wasn't necessarily close throughout the game. And kind of with the Patriots game, they were leading that game for a while. I don't know. Their defense is kind of tragic, but they'll probably look better against the Dolphins because the Dolphins aren't really that good. So, yeah. But Seattle... Yeah, okay, I'll make this quick. Seattle wins. Seattle covers. Russ is probably going to continue his MVP case. I keep talking MVP every video. There really is nothing set in stone. It's only like week 2 or week 4. We're going into week 4. So, it is what it is. I'm going to go with the Seahawks to beat the Dolphins. Next game, Steelers versus Titans. I alluded to this game early when I talked about the Texans game. This game has already been postponed because of 9 positive COVID-19 tests. So, yeah, this was one of the games I was kind of looking forward to. Like, if the Titans get back A.J. Brown, I think this is a different game because I think A.J. Brown fundamentally changes this game. I think he changes this game. Because he is really good. And he's probably the best receiver in the game if he plays. So, and yes, I know Juju is on the Steelers. So, yeah. I mean, the Titans have a pretty good roster. It's just they run the ball with Derrick Henry way too often. He's on pace for 430 carries. So, and only 1,000-something yards. Now, granted, that pace probably won't continue, but I mean, at the rate that the Titans are running this man, there's almost no way it doesn't. It's almost like he gets more carries every game. But last week they kind of hobbled out of the game against the Vikings after they imploded on the last drive. Had a pretty bad last drive. The Titans, I mean, they kicked a ton of field goals in that game. They didn't really score that many points. Which might not happen here either. But they're getting back A.J. Brown potentially. Depends on how long. Because I don't know. I think he might have been able to come back this week anyway. But now that the game is happening at a later date, in theory, that should make the Titans more healthy. Like, they might even get Adoree Jackson back. Possibly. But, yeah. Both these teams are unbeaten coming into the game. Even though I'm not quite sure how good the Titans are, or the Steelers really. I don't think the Steelers have a great offense right now. Their defense is playing amazing. They have 4 guys in the top 10 in pressures this season. TJ, Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, and Bud Dupree. They have 10 guys in the top 10 in pressures this season. Some of which are coming unblocked, some of which are defeating blocks. Like Bud Dupree, a lot of his pressures are unblocked, but whatever. They're blitzing a ton, and the team as a whole is creating a ton of pressure, generating a ton of pressure. So, yeah, that could hurt the Titans. But Ryan Tannehill's been really good under pressure, but that is something that's really unstable and probably doesn't hold itself throughout the course of the season. So, yeah. And he has already dropped off in terms of efficiency under pressure this season already. He's 21st in adjusted completion percentage under pressure, passer rating under pressure. He's still 11th, though. In terms of the amount of passes he's completing, he dropped off of a cliff under pressure, which is understandable. It makes sense because that's just like a volatile thing that won't stay stable year, that won't stay consistent year to year. So, yeah. This is really a tough game. The Steelers are favored in this game, possibly. Oh, no. The Steelers are 2-point favorites in this game. I think earlier this week, I think the Titans were 3-point favorites. So it looks like that has swung because of the COVID thing, potentially. This is interesting. It depends on how, because like this could help the Titans get healthier from like a good AJ Brown back, and possibly Dory Jackson, because they said he could practice this week, but since the game is going to get pushed back potentially, he could be back. AJ Brown could be back, which are arguably their two best players, and two most valuable players that aren't, Ryan Tannehill. That could change the game. So because it depends on who they lose because of COVID, though. Because if they're losing other players, then that kind of changes the game. I'm going to go with, Tennessee's barely beat Jacksonville. But the Steelers barely beat a Jeff Driscoll-led Broncos team. I don't know. I think both these teams are... I don't know. I'm going to go with Tennessee. I'm going to go with Tennessee to beat the Steelers because this game getting pushed back gives them a chance to get A.J. Brown and Dory Jackson back. Though they could lose other key players due to the COVID thing. We'll see, though. And they're coming off of probably a potentially short week of practice, but that could really change the game. Damn. This game really is like a toss-up. I'll just leave it at that. This game is really a toss-up. Let's go to the next game of the week, though. Dallas versus the Browns. This is a pretty interesting matchup. I've said that twice now, but it is. Kinda. Dallas is 1-2. Their record is really disappointing compared to what some people thought they could have been. People had them as the Super Bowl contender. And I kind of did too. But then again, for a couple days, then I was like, I looked at their roster. I said they lost Byron Jones, they already had a bad coverage unit, right? They lose the best player in that coverage unit, and they reap the benefits. Their secondary has been terrible, but they have played against great offenses, really. They've played against the Falcons, who have a pretty great offense from what's like a weapon standpoint. Julio, Ridley, Matt Ryan's a pretty good quarterback. They played up against the Rams. Their offense wasn't that good that game, but they gave Zeke too many carries that game. Zeke ran the ball 25 times. He had a pretty good game, but running the ball just isn't the most efficient thing in the world. Especially when you have such a potentially explosive passing offense, if you want to use it to its fullest potential. Like you have CeeDee Lamb, Cooper, Gallup. A pretty explosive passing offense, but you have to run the ball. It is what it is, though. They're 15th in EPA per play right now. People probably expect them to be higher. The Rams are second, interestingly enough. The Cowboys have been slightly disappointing. They've been slightly disappointing. They lost to the Rams, but the Rams might be pretty good. I don't know. Their defense is cheeks, though. Their defense is bad. And the Browns don't pass the ball, so this could help out the Cowboys' defense. Because the Browns, the way they want to play the game is pound Derrick Henry, pound Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt into the ground. And they're running the ball at an extremely high rate. And yeah, they're running the ball at an extremely high rate. which might not work against the Cowboys, who are going to throw the ball at a much higher rate. So to keep up with them, you're going to have to pass the ball. So this is going to be a test to see if the secondary really is good. But the weapons for the Browns are still really good, though. Like, Odell is really good. I mean, the yards at the end of the season won't be flattering for Odell Beckham. Because this team is right now on pace to run the ball like 400 times, like 400 something times, which is an extremely high amount. So, yeah, when you look back at Odell Beckham from a stat standpoint, oh, he sucks. He fell off. Like, no, not really. It's just the stats aren't there to be had. They're running the ball more than basically almost every other team in the league. So, yeah, Odell right now, since I guess this segued into him, I mean, he's ran 78 routes on the season, which ranks him out of the top 50 in terms of routes run. He's ran the 63rd highest amount of routes in the season, which is on par with KJ Hamler, who's played 2 games, Chris Godwin, who's played 2 games, Christian Kirk, who's played 2 games, under Julio Jones, who's played 2 games. Like, from a fantasy standpoint, and I will be doing the preview. I took away the takeaways, but I will be doing the previews in the preview videos. I will be doing fantasy previews for the week. Although Beckham has a high target share, but he's not running that many routes. He's not running routes at all, really, compared to other receivers. There's guys like Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, in the hundreds. And Beckham's at 78 routes run. So, yeah, they're down the field. Yeah, they're high A-dot, but he's not getting volume. The Cowboys are 4.5. Now, I mean, the way the Cowboys play, they could easily throw the Browns off of their optimal game plan, which is to run the ball. And then dropping Baker back 60 times isn't necessarily a good idea. Now, you could still do things like run play action, but teams don't do that when they get down. Even though it still works, the Rams showed that it still works. When you're under pressure, you don't have to just drop back and pass. Play action still works, regardless of what running back is back there, how much time is left, what the score is. It works most of the time. The Rams made it work. That's almost all they run, but the Rams made it work. The Browns could do the same thing. But I doubt they do, though, because they didn't the last time they got down, which was against Baltimore. Now, because Dallas' defense is kind of dreadful, then I don't think they get down by that much, which means they can still run the ball, which means there might not be too many points from their side, while Dallas is potentially lighting the scoreboard up. The total is 55. You can get them as high as 56.5. Fuck. Okay. I was looking for a calculator. I was trying to see the implied point total for each team, which is basically like 20-something. I don't know. Dallas offense has been putting points on the board at a pretty high rate. So I'm going to go with Dallas to beat the Browns. And I'm going to go with Dallas to beat the Browns this game. Now let's get on to the next game. Carolina Panthers versus the Cardinals. So, this game has a interesting line because the Cardinals are favored by much less than you'd probably expect them to be in this game. I mean, I always thought they were a bit overrated and overvalued, but they're 3-point favorites on some places against the Panthers. You can get them as high as 4 though. That's like a pretty big difference. The Cardinals, I mean, I describe them as they're basically the Saints offense, but without, they're basically the Saints offense, but with 3 wins. I mean, there's a bit more of a vertical passing attack, but 20% of Kyler Murray's passes are behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, we already knew that they run a ton of screens, but like this offense is oddly kind of unexplosive, kind of. Unless Kyler Murray's running, but their passing offense isn't that good. So, yeah, they're like 21st in yards per play. They're like 17th in EPA per play. Like, their offense hasn't been that good, and Kyler Murray was getting MVP hype, which I'm pretty sure that came to a screeching halt this past week after we threw 4 interceptions, or however many interceptions he threw. I'm pretty sure that the brakes have been pumped on that MVP case pretty hard. He was never throwing the ball that well, ever. He was running well, but he was never throwing the ball well, ever. And he's still running the ball well. I don't know. The Panthers are a team that I thought was underrated coming into the year. I mean, not like I thought they were going to go to the playoffs or anything, but I thought that like people had them as a number 1 pick. Like, Teddy Bridgewater doesn't really have a quarterback. He's really not. But then again, he's not that good either, but whatever. The Panthers still have no Christian McCaffrey. I'm surprised this line isn't wider because people might overreact to that. It seems like that overreaction has tamed itself. It makes yourself more efficient offense when you're not trying to give 100 targets to your running back in the backfield. Those are better off going to DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, who's been a pretty good receiver for the Panthers. But the Cardinals are, I think they're better than the Panthers, but so I'm going to go with the Cardinals this game, but I don't know. Like, the Cardinals have played tough. The Panthers have played tough at every team they played up against. They won a game. They played really close against the Raiders, who aren't really good, but whatever. They played relatively close against the Buccaneers, but then there was like a backdoor cover situation where Leonard Fournette ran in a touchdown. But Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, because I don't know. I don't want to pick the Panthers to win, but I'm trying to see what. I think the Panthers. I think the Cardinals could cover 3. I don't know about 4 potential. I don't know. Because I don't think the Cardinals are that good. I really don't think the Cardinals are that good. Derek Brown finally had a good game. Brian Burns just starting to come into his own. Like, their pass rush unit, Yurtugos Matos has been okay. Like, their pass rush has been solid. I mean, their coverage unit's kind of cheeks, but... And that's a pretty big deal. So, yeah. I'm going to go with the Cardinals to win this game. Now let's go to the next game, Colts versus the Bears. Nick Foles, named the starter. I heard that it's going to be permanent. We don't know yet. We'll find out. Nick Foles versus the Colts. The Colts, I still don't know what to think about the Colts. The Colts are coming into this game favored by... Damn, where's the line at? What the hell? Is it not on here? This is awkward. I can't find the line. Okay, they're 2.5 point favorites. You can get them as low as 1.5 point favorites. I don't think the Bears are good, but I also don't know what to think about the Colts. Like, they're like one bad decision from Phillip Rivers away from being undefeated. I mean, one not bad, good, whatever. But their offense really hasn't been stopped by anyone. But then again, they haven't played any good teams. I don't know what to think about their team. I mean, analytically, they are ranked like... This offense is... I don't know. I really don't know what to think about this team. They haven't played anyone good. The Bears have a much better defense than any team they played so far. They have a better defense than the Jags, the Jets. Who else did they play in between? The Vikings. They have a better defense than all those guys. Jalen Johnson's been a pretty good rookie. Khalil Mack's been back to Khalil Mack. I mean, the Colts, EPA per play, 4th in the NFL. EPA per play on run plays, 26th. They do it a lot. And they don't have a good per carry. They don't have a high EPA on those plays, but, EPA normally doesn't generate. I mean, running doesn't normally generate high EPA on the EPA works. They're ninth in terms of passing EPA. I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Phillip Rivers has been pretty efficient passing the ball. He hasn't. I don't know what to think about this offense though. He's been accurate throwing the football, but he kind of was last year. He just made poor decisions. I don't know what to think about this team though. I'm gonna go with the Colts mainly because I don't think the Bears are good, but we could see a worse version of the Colts this game. But I mean, the Bears really aren't that good though, and they have Nick Foles in. I mean, I think they cover 2.5 or 1.5. I mean, that's not. I don't know. The Colts are an interesting team because I still don't know what they are. Like, are they like? Because they just beat up on like 3 of the worst teams in the NFL. The Jags, Jets, and Vikings. They beat up on arguably the 3 worst teams in it. Well, I think the Jags are a bit higher than that, but I mean, at the same time, their defense isn't. But it's not like their defense stopped them, though. It's like they didn't punt once that game. Rivers made a bad decision on a play that was basically schemed up for him to throw an interception, and he threw it. So, not schemed up offensively, but a defensive play. The defense schemed up a play that was basically an interception. And it's like he threw the interception. And I don't know. I'm going to go with the Colts, mainly because I don't think the Bears are good. But, yeah, let's go to the next game, though. Baltimore Ravens versus Washington. Baltimore comes into this game as 13-point favorites. You can get them as low as 12.5. I think before the week, like earlier this week, they were 14-point favorites. I mean, maybe I think that changed after the Kansas City game, but I don't think that Kansas City game has any effect on what is going to happen against Washington. Like, it's not like Washington can do anything to stop them. I mean, the main thing that stopped them was, they dropped a ton of passes. Lamar missed some throws. Lamar wasn't great at all, really. I mean, he was better than the stats made it out to be. He had a ton of drops this past week. And yeah, he had 5 drops this week on only 28 attempts, 17.9% drop rate, which was the highest by a long shot this week. After those drops in, it raises his adjusted completion percentage up to 74th, which was 20th on the week, which isn't really good, but it was better than it was made out to be. His performance was much, and it was a touchdown was dropped, another big explosive play was dropped, like plays that would have fundamentally changed the game ended up being dropped. So I think that really skewed the perception on that game. Lamar wasn't nearly as bad as it looked. Like, it was some big plays that were left on the table by drops. And then he also had a dropped interception where he had a couple dropped interceptions. He had the one where he tried to throw it to Marquise Brown. I don't remember the other one, but I know there was 2. I don't remember the play exactly. But he had the one where he was throwing it to Marquise Brown, and he didn't put any air underneath that one at all. Kind of tried to rifle it in, and then it ended up getting dropped. It was a dropped interception. Now, I don't think that Washington will have any effect on that because Washington is bad. So this should be a bounce-back game where Lamar shows that he's still a top-tier quarterback in the NFL. And, Mark Andrews probably doesn't drop 500 million passes. So, and probably doesn't drop a touchdown. Washington coming off of their worst game of the year, probably. And, Dwayne Haskins was terrible. Had a dropped interception, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles. He was bad. Terrible. Like, awful. Washington has, like, 1 or 2 players that are pretty good on offense. Like, Antonio Gibson's been pretty good in his limited snaps. McLaurin's great, of course. I'm not saying they should give Antonio Gibson more carries, but You should be giving him more carries compared to J.D. McKissick. So yeah, they need an offensive overhaul, like a new quarterback, playmakers, the whole 9 yards. They need everything. Dwayne Haskins, from what we've seen already, probably isn't a franchise quarterback. And coming out of college, he was never going to be a top-tier quarterback. He was always someone you needed everything to be perfect around. I mean, that's not the ideal. That's not the ideal thing you want in a franchise quarterback. Like, you want someone that's going to create out of structure, make plays under pressure, and be good in structure, much as like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Dak Prescott has a little bit of that too. I mean, Carson Wentz did for most of his career, except for this year where he fell off of a cliff. Yeah. And, for Washington, I know just a guy down in South Carolina playing for Clemson who does all those things. Goes by the name of Trevor Lawrence. At this rate, Washington will probably be picking in the top 3. And Trevor Lawrence will be sitting there. Potentially. Depends on which top 3 pick they have. 1, 2, or 3. If he's there, he's the only option you should be looking at. Not Penei Sewell. I mean, he's a great tackler and all that, but the value of him hitting versus Trevor Lawrence hitting, totally different. Trevor Lawrence is 20 times more valuable if he hits his 99th percentile. I mean, if Penei Sewell hits his 99th percentile, I mean, if you're Washington, you basically have your Trent Williams 2.0, but I mean, that didn't really mean anything when you had pretty bad quarterback play, but it is what it is. That's Washington versus Baltimore. Baltimore should win and get right back on track. Now let's go to the 4 o'clock slate with the Giants versus the Rams. Rams coming off of a loss to the Bills. Both of these teams coming off losses. Giants coming off of one of the most depressing losses you'll see all season. Nick Mullins, Brandon Ayuk, and Kyle Shanahan. That's all Shanahan needed to just put a beating on the New York Giants. I mean, the Rams, they came back. They played really good against the Bills, in the second half at least, offensively. The first half, they couldn't get anything going. Now, against the Giants, you should be able to get things going the whole game because the Giants aren't really that good. They don't have too many good players on roster right now. I know Saquon Barkley's injured. I mean, Daniel Jones isn't that good. James Bradbury is probably the only good guy you have right now. So yeah. And, I mean, their linebackers, Blake Martinez has a ton of tackles, but that's what Blake Martinez does. He's still bad in coverage. So Sean McVay probably has a massive bullseye on the back of Blake Martinez. So, that being said, Blake Martinez will be attacked. This game is probably going to get ugly. Blake Martinez. Who else do they have starting at linebacker? Devontae Downs. Okay. That's interesting in itself. Yeah. Rest in peace to the Giants. They'll probably be. They got worked yesterday by probably a worse 49ers team at this point. Like, I don't think the 49ers are a worse team than the Rams, but the roster they trotted out last week was far worse than the Rams. Like, Robert Woods is by far the best receiver on the 49ers. Same with Cooper Kupp. With that roster they trotted out, Jared Goff's better than Nick Mullins. Shanahan's better than McVay, but McVay isn't no slouch as a play caller. He's great as well. This game is probably what is the line? I didn't look at the line. They're favored by a lot though. Like they're heavy favorites. It might be a double-digit spread, I think. Yeah, it's a double-digit spread. They're 13-point favorites, 12.5-point favorites. Rightfully so. They should probably cover that too. The Giants, Daniel Jones does have some high variance, and he has higher variance than Haskins. Because I think Haskins, you either get average or bad, and I think Daniel Jones, you could get to a couple good games, but you could also get like dreadful games, like worst quarterback in the league type games. So you could like the Giants could have a game where Daniel Jones hits the high end of variance, hitting some big throws into some tight windows, or it goes much how we expect it to go. Now that's a big line to cover for a Rams team that I don't think is even that great. So maybe put a little bit. Maybe hit a little bit of money plus 13 on the Giants to cover that spread, not to win outright. Because I don't think they win, regardless of what happens. There's a slight scenario that they win, but they're going to have no answers for the Rams. It's either going to be a full-blown shootout or the Rams win. So, yeah, now let's get on to the next game, the game of the week. Chiefs versus the Patriots. Cam Newton facing Mahomes, coming off of an amazing game against the Ravens. Patriots are similar defensively to the Ravens in the fact that they always have a pretty good game plan for the Chiefs. They have a pretty good game plan for every game. Bill Belichick, one of the best defensive play callers in the NFL. But yeah, they always struggle against the Patriots. They're always gonna come with a game plan. Andy Reid versus Belichick. Honestly, probably the matchup of the game. As it always is when these two play. It's a chess match. Always going to be interesting to watch what they call versus what what they call versus what the other team calls. Is always going to be an interesting cat and mouse game between those two guys. Patrick Mahomes is great. Cam Newton also. He wasn't nearly as good against the Raiders, but against the Seahawks, who have an admittedly bad secondary, it was a laser show. He was lighting them on fire. So Cam can still throw the ball, but he's not, he's more accurate than he was before. But I think in the Raiders game, we kind of saw what Cam is 7th in adjusted completion percentage right now. He's way more accurate than he was before. He's a much better passer in general than he was in Carolina, because even in his MVP season, I don't think he was throwing the ball this well. In his MVP season, he was still relatively inaccurate still. So, yeah, Cam Newton is probably throwing the ball the best he ever has. Cam Newton in his MVP season was only 24th in adjusted completion percentage. He made a ton of big plays and red zone running, and the stats were a bit fluff. They were inflated. We knew they were going to come back down to earth, but yeah, Cam Newton's at an 80% adjusted completion percentage right now, which is 7th in the NFL, which is really high, and the highest figure of his career. He's throwing the ball more accurately than he has in his career, in terms of just ball location as well. The first game was a bit worse but against the Seahawks, he was great. Cam Newton still has it. They're coming into this game as 7-point dogs to the Chiefs, which I feel like that's a disrespectful line. I don't think they're 7 points better. Chiefs have a little bit of home field advantage due to having a little bit of fans, but does that really sway the line that heavily? I don't think so. Kansas City is good, but when you think about it, they just came off of a gigantic win against a team that runs a similar style of defense and offense, kind of. They don't run as much with Cam unless it's in the red zone. Cam hasn't ran the ball that much, or as much as you think he has, relative to his touchdown totals. Cam has ran the ball. He's ran 30. He's actually ran more than Lamar Jackson, but he's been way less efficient. So, yeah, he has 4 touchdowns on 31 runs, most of which in the red zone. So, Cam, that line just doesn't feel I feel like they don't cover 7. That feels way too far out. They couldn't even cover 7 against. They didn't even beat them by 7 last year when Tom Brady was playing not so great. Now, Cam is probably playing better than Brady was last year, but I don't know. He's playing better than Brady was, especially if you get the version of Cam we got against Seattle. Then he's definitely playing better than Tom Brady. than Tom Brady was last year. But 7 just seems really far. 7 seems really high. I don't think they'll cover that. I don't think Kansas City will cover that. I think they win. But there is a chance that the Patriots win outright, too. I would put something on +7. That seems too far out of a line. And it's like we've already seen the Pats in a situation where they started trailing against the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a little bit of luck in there because they had some explosive plays and a touchdown drop. So they got a little bit lucky that game, too. The Chiefs did. I mean, the Pats receivers drop passes, too. Like, Cam Newton, I think they have, like, the highest drop percentage in the NFL right now, if I'm not mistaken. Well, not the highest. He has the 8th highest drop percentage. Total drops, he has 10th highest. I mean, there's been a ton of drops. Oh, mainly in the Seattle game, which is the game they passed the ball the most. And they're gonna probably get in a situation where they're gonna have to pass the ball a lot again against the Chiefs offense or against this Chiefs team because the Chiefs are gonna put up a ton of points. What is the total for this game? The total for this game, 53.5 is the total for this game. I mean, there's not much stopping overs this year. So, I mean, you might as well go. I mean, the under is it's better money, but I doubt it goes under. I mean, potentially. Because, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go with Kansas City, and I'm going to go with the Pats to cover +7 because that just seems really far out. So, yeah, next game, Bills versus Raiders. The Bills, coming into this game as 3-point favorites. That seems low, like really low. The Raiders are kind of overvalued by the market because we're saying, are the Bills only 3 points better than the Raiders? No. Are the Patriots 3 points better than the Bills at this point, as they came into this game as about 6-point favorites, or are they 2.5 points better than the Bills? At this point, probably not. But even that's up in the air, which means, I don't know, because I don't think that they're too far apart. The Bills and the Patriots. But the Raiders are far off of the level of the Bills. The Raiders aren't that good. Like, yeah, sure, they're like 2-1, but, I mean, one of the games was against the Panthers, who aren't that good, even though I thought they were underrated, and I actually paid them to win. But the Raiders haven't been that good. Like, they're an okay team. I mean, the Bills, Josh Allen's been playing really good this season. I don't know why that would stop against a team that has no shot of covering basically any of the receivers on the Bills. I mean, well, then again, Trayvon Mullen did have a pretty good game last week, but I still don't think that he has a shot at covering Stephon Diggs. I mean, who did they play last week? The Patriots? I mean, the Patriots don't have any good receivers outside of Julian Edelman or any receiver that's going to create separation outside of Julian Edelman. So, and even Julian Edelman's like 7,000 years old. I mean, he's still good at running routes, but not that fast. And Trayvon Mullen's pretty athletic, relatively athletic. The Bills, the Raiders have no shot of covering them. So, like, from a defense standpoint, like, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, who have been open, who created the highest percentage of open targets in the NFL already. Wait, no, I think they're second. I think the Panthers are first, actually. But a team that's created open throws at one of the highest rates in the NFL against a team that's not good in the secondary, this shouldn't be a 3-point line. The Raiders are much worse than Buffalo. And I'm going to go with Buffalo to cover 3 and beat the Raiders. So now let's go to the next game of the week. Sunday nighter, Eagles versus the 49ers. The Eagles coming into this game as 4.5-point dogs against potentially Nick Mullins. I'm not Nick Mullins unsure which QB will start doing. Okay, so there is no news on who's going to be starting. Now, the Eagles from a roster strength standpoint are probably better than the Giants, but the way those guys have performed, trash. So the Eagles and Giants are about on the same level, and I made a mistake too. They're 7-point underdogs against the 49ers. With potentially Nick Mullins starting. I think the Giants were 4.5-point favorites coming into this game against the 49ers. Which is basically implying the Giants are 4 points better than the Eagles, but I'm not 100% sure if that was what it was last week either, though. So I have to look at that. 7 points seems pretty high for a team without their starting quarterback to cover. Kyle Shanahan's good, but I don't know how many times he's going to squeeze the juice out of this shit fruit. The 49ers were 3.5-point favorites, so either this means that they think Garoppolo is going to play, which is possible, or they just think that the Giants are 3.5 points better than the Eagles. That doesn't seem right either. But then again, the Eagles have been dreadful this year, so potentially Wentz has been playing like the worst quarterback in the NFL. Nick Mullins, he's not that good, but Shanahan is amazing, and he's definitely the better coach coming into this game. Mullins, even though I don't think he's that good, coming into this game, what we've seen this season, there's not too much to convince me. Oh man, I don't even feel like saying this out of my mouth, but at this point, from what we've seen this season, I'm not sure. I don't think Nick Mullins is the worst quarterback coming into this game. I think Nick Mullins is probably the better quarterback coming into this game. Wentz has been that bad, and if it's Jimmy G, just forget about it. He's better than. What we've seen from Jimmy G in Week 1 was almost no better than what we've seen from Wentz this season. He limited turnovers, but he couldn't complete a pass. Wentz can't complete a pass, but he's also not limiting the turnovers. Fumbled a ton of dropped interceptions, ton of interceptions. He has been awful this year. His accuracy has been terrible, just bad. But 7.5 for a Nick Mullins-led team just doesn't seem right. But at the same time, giving more thought, sadly for Eagles fans, Nick Mullins is probably the better quarterback coming into this game. I'm going to go with the 49ers. I don't know if they cover 7. Then again, the Eagles lost by 17 to the Washingtons. Or to Washington. They tied with the Bengals. That was mainly due to a piss poor coaching decisions. It was really odd. They put up a fight against the Rams in the second half at least, but the Eagles just haven't been good. I'm going to go with the 49ers to beat the Eagles. You have to think at some point in the season, there's going to be a game where the Eagles look somewhat good, but I don't know when that week's going to come. Because if it didn't come against the Bengals, then you're in some trouble. The Eagles have been awful this season. But yeah, let's go. I'm going to go with the 49ers. I'm going to go with the 49ers over the Eagles. Let's go to the last game of the week, the Monday Nighter, Atlanta versus Green Bay. Now on to Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers' Packers versus Matt Ryan's Choke Atlanta. Fuck it. They suck. I can't say that because they played good in every first half. Oh, except for the one against the Seahawks. But they played good in almost every first half this season. And just absolutely implode in the second half. Don't know why that is. They just suck. They just do. Now they're going up against an offense that has the highest yards per drive of any team ever, I think. In the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers is playing like Aaron Rodgers. So, with that being said, I don't know if Atlanta has much of a shot. AJ Terrell, who was terrible week 1, much better week 2, is on the COVID reserve list. Their secondary sucks. I mean, their pass rush is also bad. Their defense is bad. Now, Green Bay, on the other hand, doesn't have the best defense ever. Like, they gave up 34 to the Vikings. Though they came in garbage time, they still gave up 34 points. And the Falcons, who have pretty good weapons, pending on whether Julio Jones plays or not, or plays full activity or full health, which, might not happen with a hamstring. Also depends on if Devontae Adams plays, but even still, Aaron Rodgers has been great this year. So the weapons haven't mattered for Aaron Rodgers. They probably won't matter against this team. So, yeah. This game, the Chargers are Chargers. The Falcons are an interesting team because I don't think they're that bad, but there's also nothing that like based on how their games have gone, they are like they could be 2-1 right now. Like they could be 2-1 right now. They just didn't collapse in the second half of games. I mean, I'm going to go with Green Bay, but Green Bay is coming in this game as a pretty heavy favorite, which they're 7.5 point favorites against Atlanta. I mean, that seems a bit wide, don't you think? That seems a bit too high. I don't know. But it's not like Atlanta's playing bad for most of these games. It's not like Atlanta is playing like the worst team in the league. It's not. Their defense is. In terms of like their scoring defense, their coverage unit is bad. Green Bay has been good, but dang. Ooh. I'm gonna go with Green Bay, but I don't know if they cover 7 or /7.5. That seems too wide for a team that has such an explosive and great offense as Atlanta. I won't bet them outright. I won't bet them to win outright because they have disappointed me greatly every fucking time. So, yeah, that's the Green Bay versus Atlanta game. Let's go to the fantasy preview of the week. Fantasy preview section. We talk about start sit stuff, all that fantasy stuff. Let's start with the start sit. Let's start with maybe you might want to sit Nick Chubb potentially. The volume has been there over the course of the season, but if they get in a game where Dallas has their way on offense, then they might have to abandon the run, and you might have a Nick Chubb versus the Baltimore Ravens type game from his fantasy outpoint. That's the last time this team was trailing in a game against Baltimore. This Dallas offense could put up points too, and put points up in a hurry as well. So they could they could get thrown off of the game plan that they want to run, which is run the ball a lot with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. This could be a game where they go down a bit early. They have to go to some typical drop back passing. Kareem Hunt's getting the snaps now. They have to abandon Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb has a performance like he did in week number 1. That's potentially that's a potential outcome. Also, based on matchup, you might want to start your maybe like Cooper Kupp. You might want to start Cooper Kupp or Higbee because those linebackers are bad, which could be some free fantasy points for Higbee because no one's going to cover him when he's wide open due to some McVay scheming and linebackers being bad for that team. Higbee might be a start this week. I mean, yeah. Joe Burrow might be a QB1 at this point. Might have elevated himself to QB1 status at this point. I mean, potentially. I mean, and against the Jaguars, that's also a pretty good matchup. Like, the pass rush for the Jaguars isn't this relentless, unbeatable unit. So he might have a bit more time in the pocket this week. It might be a game that generates a lot of points. I mean, the total for that game might not indicate that, but I feel like there's potential with these two offenses and the two quarterbacks at hand. So, yeah. Maybe Joe Burrow has elevated himself to quarterback one status in fantasy. I mean, I don't want to start anybody in this Jets, bro. You don't want to be playing anyone. Potentially Melvin Gordon. They might go with a run-heavy attack. He might receive a ton of volume. Maybe, but I don't know at this point. And like even last week, they were like splitting carries. He was splitting carries with Royce Freeman, so maybe he's not the play either. I mean, Kamara. Don't know why you would ever sit Kamara, but the Lions have a pretty bad defensive line. I mean, Kamara's getting like 10 targets a game, like double-digit targets a game. Yeah, I think he's just on 10 targets a game. He's on pace for 1,500 receiving yards. So I mean, like that's interesting. Keenan Allen might be a pretty good start. I mean, I don't think the Buccaneers have anybody really to match up with him when he goes into the slot. No one really has a short area quickness, change of direction, and kind of deal with him from like those corners are big. They don't have too much movement in terms of like lateral. Keenan Allen's one of the best route runners. Justin Herbert is targeting him at a really high rate. He is second in targets in the NFL. So that could be something you want to do. Will Fuller, provided health, if he plays, you probably want to start him against this offense. Last time the Vikings had to deal with a really fast receiver and Marquise Valdes-Scantling, who was much worse than Will Fuller. It didn't go too well. If Will Fuller's healthy and plays this week, he's definitely a start for this week. Definitely start from this week. You might want to sit Derrick Henry. I mean, the Steelers' defensive front's been great. Derrick Henry doesn't give you much of a receiving floor. And he's going up against an amazing defensive line. You might also want to sit like Tannehill too, if you have him starting. I had him starting on one of my teams that I didn't even draft somehow. Whatever. It was desperate. It was a desperation start. Because Carson Wentz was my quarterback before that. It was definitely a desperation start. Definitely a desperation start. You might want to sit Derrick Henry. I mean, Marquise Brown's probably a start for the week, and I mean Gibson, if you have him as like a flex, maybe he's probably not someone you want to start this week because they might not be running the ball often. And even still, he doesn't get that many carries or as many carries as you would like him to, and he doesn't get the snaps. Like J.D. McKissic is out snapping him all the season, so in terms of snap percentage, that might not be the play there. You might want to sit Gibson if you have him in any sort of slot. I mean, flex, potentially. Yeah. The Bills. I mean, there's probably matchups you want to target there, but that receiver room is kind of crowded, and Diggs is the high man in terms of targets. Like right now, Stephon Diggs is 7th in targets in the entire NFL. No one else on that team has above 20. Like, it's definitely Diggs' receiver room. So you might not want to start anybody else, but like maybe. I don't Yeah. This is the end of the video, end of the podcast, video, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't know. I don't care. Subscribe, like, all that stuff, and I'm out. Peace.